Welcome to the 9th and final session of Mindful Eating for the Beloved Community. We're going to start by asking Patricia Kerr of Walker Memorial Baptist Church and Golden Leaf Community Development Center to lead us in our opening mindfulness moment. And I'm sharing something for my screen, right, Patricia?
Yeah. Yes, sure. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for the privilege and opportunity to be in this space and to be able to share with you this afternoon. I chose to go to one of the chapters in our book for this evening reflection. That chapter is headed Food as Medicine. I was interested in the quote from Winona LaDuke, and it is profound, and it really helps us to think as to where we are coming from and where we need to be going. And the quote reads as such: "We are part of everything that is beneath us, above us, and around us. Our past is our present is our future, and our future is 7 generations past and present. Let us be the ancestors our descendants will thank." So I thought that was very profound and intriguing and appropriate for this evening and at this time as we come to the end of our semester. And we have gone through a journey and we have learned so much through this process as we all journey together. But I thought that this was interesting because it's talking about food as medicine. So we learned so much about food. We've been talking about mindfulness. And, you know, I just took some excerpts out of this chapter. And part of it say, for Native Americans, the traditional food is central to their well-being. It is a gift from the Creator that feeds and sustains us, a gift from the Creator that feeds and sustains us. We also consider it to be medicine that has the ability to heal us. In the past, our ancestors were mindful when they harvested, prepared, and ate food. We prepared meals with good thoughts, feelings, good energy, maintaining a balance. And I thought that was very interesting because I shared with Bob just, on yesterday that my grandmother lived to the rightful age of 103. She died just about 3 years ago, a little over 2 years. And, she was close to nature. She did her farming. She grew chickens, pigs, all kinds of food. She really never had an issue going to the doctor. She would heal you with just the plants and so on and so forth. And she had all her faculties and ability until, her death in 2019. So, this is so appropriate. This is so, in line with, some of our history and tradition. And if we would really just go back to our legacy, our tradition, we would be in a better place. So it said we ought to prepare food with love, gratitude, honoring our legacy of the creative power of God. In the Living Translation in Genesis 1:25, it states, "Then God said, look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth and all the fruit trees for your food, and all these fruit trees for your food." So our Creator created us, and not only created us, but He provided and prepared provision for us. So He created food for us as well. So what it's saying also that at one time we had an interconnectedness between ourselves and the food we eat. But because we have moved away from those traditions, we have moved away from nature, we have become more assimilated into our culture and become a genocidal practice. Our diets have shifted to the modern Western diet, which has shaped food from medicine to a poison that wreaks havoc on our bodies. So food, God created everything, and everything that God created was good. But we put ourselves in the midst and we began to change things and wanted, to be part of whatever the culture was. We wanted to be part of everything else. And so instead of having food to really nurture us and build us up, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, in all levels. It talked also about the 4 quadrants. Now, what we have done with food, we have made it a poison. And it really brought me back to when we were talking about the sugar and how sugar came to be and how, we started in that tradition, but now we continue and sugar has become poison to our bodies. So I also wanted to include this other quote from the same person, Winona LaDuke. She said, the recovery of the people is tied to recovery of food. The recovery of the people is tied to the recovery of food. Since food itself is medicine, not only for the body, but also for the soul and the spiritual connection to history, the ancestors and the land. So I just wanted to share, these moments of reflection and these thoughts with you this afternoon, and hope that, that we can really reflect on it some more and really explore some of these sayings some more so that we can see how real all this is. So, I'm just grateful again to be in this forum, to be able to learn more about, our bodies and food and how it relates all to everything that we do, and so that we can enjoy food. So I just want to thank God at this time for the privilege to be in this space and to learn so much more about food and to be mindful about what we do and how we are harming our bodies and how we have the power to make that change. And, we have the legacy from Genesis until now. And so all we need to do is to recover, just like Winona said here, to recover. And to recover, we're going to recover and regain through food that will feed our mind, our bodies, and our soul. Thank you for this moment.
Thank you, Patricia. That was apropos and, with a lot of intention. That really fits well with not only the courses of all of the sessions that we participate in and engage with, but it's also a really good way of summing up this last session of all the sessions, which is bittersweet for me. And so, we want to continue down this course with that in mind. So thank you so much for that, that opening space that you created for us. It's really appreciated.
More than welcome.
I would like to introduce Lois Godfrey. And the long story short I met Lois through Kelly. And it was one of those conversations where I thought it was going to be 10 minutes and it was over an hour. Because we started peeling back the onion in such a succinct way. And one of the things that I really, really appreciated about her is the narrative and storytelling that she was actually putting into action regarding her own immediate personal family. And that's so touching. It's come up from time to time in these classes that we want to impact the community and change in the community, but some of the hardest pieces of that is within our own family, because they will scrutinize us. They'll throw a pan at us. They'll curse us out. As soon as we start to tell them that, we're worried about them, or we care about them, or they have to go to the doctor, or they have to change this, or they should change that. And, because internally, there's some wounds there, there sometimes, initial reaction is to be defensive. And so Lois told me a story about how she approached her family, and I hope she gets a chance to give, that brief overview of really looking about how she could change the trajectory of health in her family, by using the power of story and bringing them into a space that they felt safe to make the changes that she really feels that she's been able to notice life-changing, things that have been able to impact the lives of her immediate family. So that all said, Lois, please bless us with your presence in presenting the family heritage and the workshop construct that you've created, that I think every family should try to implement, because, the longer all of our family members live, the less sorrow and grief we have to endure with their early passing. So Lois, can you please take it away?
I can. Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much for inviting me to share my family's stories. I think some of them are here tonight. I can't see them, but if they are, just hello to all of them. Okay. Yes. So last year, when the pandemic struck, and it was noted that people who had pre-existing conditions, particularly high blood pressure and diabetes and heart disease, were going to have a real serious outcomes with the coronavirus. And because I've been working with diabetes and disparities and the difference in the treatment plans, and when it first started to take over our community, we had not seen so much improvement that we could now take a virus and then just on top of everything else that was going on. So I'm thinking, this is just going to be a horrible outcome. I felt like something was on top of my head and I was just in this hole, and I'm saying, without the virus, we can't dig out of this hole. How are we going to come out of it with a virus? What can we do? And the we was, broad. It was everybody. But I knew that I did not have the ability to address it in that broad category. But I felt that if I could pull my family together in some kind of a way, help them to understand the importance of wherever they were, to begin to address some of those pre-existing conditions, if in fact they had been diagnosed, or if in fact they were at a stage where they just needed to get those numbers down, that they needed to make better food choices, eat more veggies, eat more fruits, whatever they needed to do, this was the time to do it. And so because there is a huge generation gap between me and most of my relatives, my biggest challenge was, how do I bring them all together so that there's a level of respect, a level of understanding, and the desire to want to do it, to participate. The one thing that I think that came to my mind that would pull us all together and get everybody excited about saying, hey, this is something we want to hear more about, is I said, well, why don't we do it from my father's side of the family, and just do a whole heritage cultural gathering of all of the folks that we can pull together who were linked to my dad's side of the family. And with that, we set out to have something that was called the Godfrey Family Heritage Connect. Send out our invitations, and we pulled together a good number of nieces. They're my nieces and cousins and nephews. I am the third oldest living relative on my dad's side. And so all of them are younger than I am. Okay. So anyway, Kelly, so what happened is we met for about 3 or 4 sessions, and it was determined that we needed to be more specific, to have some written guidelines, some outcomes, some lesson plans, and a whole curriculum, and that's what I did. So I started writing the curriculum, and these are, as you can see, my Godfrey Family, our Godfrey Family Connect African Heritage and Health Workshop. These are relatives of ours, which reflects or just pulls in everybody. My sister, her children, my brother, my aunts, and what have you. So when we come together, there is a way of everybody feeling like they are included and can have a say and can be comfortable and safe and surrounded by love. And that was the key piece of coming together, is that any changes, anything that we wanted to do or share, that we would do it in love. So we have a whole bunch of pictures, but these are some. So now that you've seen some of the pictures, the next thing I did, well, we have a disclaimer, and it's pretty consistent with most disclaimers. So I just chose it, and so that's what we did. We put that in, okay? So now the table of content. As you can see, it reflects pretty much just a few things that I thought were important to start out with. And we're going to get a chance to take a look at each one of these, and I'm going to share with you some of the information behind each one of these topics, so that you will have a better knowledge of how we use it and how it can be used in other settings. So this was my overview. I was really struggling with what to say and how to say it. I know that quite often when we are talking about assisting other people with changes, that you want to make sure that it's not a vanity thing. It's not, oh, I'm so good at it. I have all of this self-control and what have you. So I wanted to make sure that everyone felt, I guess, my pain when I was listening to CNN that morning and they were talking about these pre-existing conditions. And I'm thinking, wow, I have got to help my family. And that is just pretty much where my heart and my mind was at that time, that I just wanted to pull them together and to show them and teach them ways in which they could make better food choices and have an impact on the reversals of some of these conditions and to build their immune system. So at any rate, one of the things that has always worked in my work and with the agencies and the different organizations that I've worked with has been the spiritual foundation for how we build our changes. And what is it that sustains us? What motivates us? Changes are very hard, and we need a good reason to make them. We need one that is tried and true. I always say that when you're trying to make a change, that it should be so much at some point a part of you that you will not let anything turn you around. And if it does, you just make a U-turn and get right back on track. But over the years, in working with different groups, particularly faith-based groups, we've always included scriptures and prayer. It does help to point out that God loves us. He made us. He created us. He wants us to be healthy. We can always turn for inspiration and motivation and joy when we're having struggles and tough times. So I have here is the scripture that sort of guided me to move forward with the project, a scripture and a prayer. So that's where we are with the Psalm 94. You could read that at some other time. And the prayer, I think I like the prayer. Maybe I'll read the prayer. It said, Lord, will you remind me that perfection is never the goal, but a heart toward you and your way. Help me to feel secure, knowing that getting healthy is a matter of making progress, one healthy choice at a time. Trust that your strength will give me confidence, hope, patience in hard times, and the faithfulness to keep praying. So I'd like to add that this family's response to especially learning more about their ancestors, their grandparents and what have you, was really a big piece in getting them to get excited about the changes when we sort of transitioned from, we have our ancestors, we will always be able to talk about them and add more information and meet new relatives and what have you. But we're going to take what we're doing and we're going to look at them and we're going to translate that into their lifestyles. My grandmother was post slavery. She was born in 1900. And so many of the relatives were hearing about early life in rural Alabama during that time for the first time. Many of them had grown up in Alabama and had moved away. A lot of them remember living off the land and living with their grandmothers. Many of the nieces and nephews spent loads of time with my mom and my father, which would have been their grandmother and their grandfather. And so we often hear about those experiences when they were in my mom's and dad's home, because my mom and dad were not farmers, but certainly did grow a lot of food. So I was probably, me and a few others of the relatives that actually did not have the introduction and the interference and the temptation of the fast food, because during my time, there was no fast food. So I was probably about 25 years of old when I had my first meal that was actually prepared by somebody that I did not know. And so I had grown up eating home-cooked plant-based foods. So at any rate, as we move along to the next thing that I'd like to talk to you about, is I wanted to make sure that the family had a better understanding about the heart disease and high blood pressure and diabetes, and what percentage of us were impacted by it. And so as we looked at the statistics, with the numbers being incredibly high, I think that perhaps for many of them, it opened up how they were able to see it as being probably a good time to pay more attention and to try to take some action to get many of those numbers down. Because quite often you'd hear, someone say, oh, I'm pre-diabetic, but pre-diabetic, and yet there's not been any plan to do very much about it. And quite often when there is a diagnosis, we don't quite know where to start and how to start in order to get those numbers down. So this was going to bring us together so that we could put all of those plans together. So once I'd given them this information, I think that many of them were a bit surprised to see just what percentage of us were actually in that group of people that were going to get caught up in that pandemic. And so here we are now, going into again, the diabetes particularly is one in which we still struggle with a lot. And here I just made mention of how many of these pre-existing conditions are related to a lot of other factors. And some of the family members were well aware of some of their surroundings and factors in terms of stores and food choices and food access as to what contributed to some of the problems that we were having. But it was helpful to take a look at it because we don't want to find ourselves at a point of not doing our best. You say, when we know better, we do better. Okay. So it was just good to say, okay, we know about all of those other things, and we'll fight to get those as much as we can. We'll look at the racism and the poverty, and we will fight. We will do whatever we can. But clearly, there are some things that we can do on our own. And so that's what we're moving into now, is that we just had an overview of a heritage approach for eating and making healthier choices. And my way of, I think, getting my family to buy into this was to take our family, talk about them, talk about the heritage, talk about all of the ways in which they had lived, the hardships, and the food and the cooking at home, and to hear them talk about their moms and what it was like to make one pot and of beans, and go into the garden, and what it was like to one person in our community had a sugarcane mill. When everybody went to the sugarcane mill, and they came back with these two little buckets of syrup. We also had people who would go to the hog killing days. So we heard about those kinds of stories, okay? But nevertheless, that brings us closer to who we are. And it says that, if our ancestors had got through those periods of time, the kind of food that they ate, those were the traditional foods. Many of them they brought with them, the seeds. And as was mentioned earlier, those were the same seeds that God gave us, a plant and so forth. So we know that the food in which God gave us has been around for a very long time. Okay, so we are the goal was to just go back and claim that food, claim our heritage, and take back our health. And so we have this whole curriculum. The foundation is built around the African Heritage Diet Brochure. Okay, so very similar to the presentation we had a few minutes ago, this one comes from an organization up in Boston that's called Old Ways. They've been around for more than 15 years, and their focus is really on heritage and going back the old ways and looking at the diaspora and inclusion of the folks who came to this country and the foods in which were considered to be traditional foods. And what they've done is they've taken a very scientific approach to really study each and every one of the places in which there was a stopover for example, the South America and what have you. So hold it right there for a minute, Kelly. So this is the African heritage one. So what I did is I took the 10 steps for your health through heritage, which you won't be able to see that piece of the curriculum today. But for each one of these steps, there is a full lesson plan that addresses the boost of flavor with spice. The first session we had, I added a few. I decided to do out with the old, in with the new, and that was a way of encouraging the family members to take a close look in their kitchen and their pantries, their refrigerators, their freezer, look at the spices. We talked about just cleaning it out and starting all over, not necessarily throwing away food, but just paying more attention to how to set up a healthy kitchen according to the recommended way of eating. So of course, you want to look at, what do I not only shift, but what do I replace it with? So each one of these tips, there is a corresponding lesson plan that will teach, because we've not gotten to but one yet. The next time we meet, we will be working with the spices and what have you. So that is how I developed the lessons from these tips, okay? Okay, so we can see now the benefits of following an African heritage diet. Again, it's evidence-based, and of course, those conditions that we were concerned about, it does address that, the heart disease, high blood pressure, and what have you. And this is one of the reasons I thought it was just the ideal way of helping the family members to take a closer look and to adapt and follow the African heritage diet. So we leave there. So here we have, again, it's the connection that is so critically important. It's keeping the family connected. And how do you do that? What is something that you can do that pulls everybody together and keep them excited and motivated? So here we have these prescriptions to claim our health, and they are just scriptures that really reinforces what we need to hear when we're trying to make a change. When things are just tough, when something is just rocked our day, we just want to eat all the ice cream, we don't want to run, we don't want to do any of that, and we just need something to get us back on track. So I thought that if they had scriptures that could kind of pull them out of that, it would be incredibly helpful. So the first one is just about willpower. And I included the ancestors as being part of that because I wanted it to feel like that they were still with us, in a sense, that they were still guiding us and wanted us to be healthy, and that we would want to fulfill that, that would be something that would be pleasing to them, especially after they had a chance to visit with and meet so many of the other relatives and hear about grandparents and so forth. So here we have the motivation piece. I thought was a good one. And again, it's the scripture that I, chose that coincides with motivation. And in each one of them, there's a little story there that sort of ties into how our ancestors used some of these same ways of getting through a very difficult time. So I just, without a clear motivation, and we talked about a bit of that. But again, this is just so open for so many different ways of using it. So let's go to the next one, Kelly. So we speak of gratitude, and that's really a good part of why we say our praises before we eat. We want to be thankful for the wonderful, healthy foods that we have an opportunity to eat. It's just a matter of choices in some instances, but we do know that there might be other factors like, not having access to food and what have you. But what we want to do is to make sure that we have made our family members aware of how to make those choices and what they should be choosing. So here, the inequality on our food system. And we hear so much about what's going on with the farmers and the wealth gap. And so there's a lot to be done. And and I wanted to put that piece in because it would be great for the family members to be involved in ways in which they can have an impact on their community with their schools and the churches and what have you, because many of them, they live all over. They're in Miami, they're in Chicago, they are in Washington, D.C., Wisconsin, they are in Texas, they are Mississippi, Alabama. So they're all over, and they have children and grandchildren, and many of them are involved and connected with their churches and what have you. So we want them to be very conscious of what's going on when it comes to our food system. Okay. So we're going to turn around if we have to. We're not perfect. We make a mistake. So we're going on to the next one. And we know that if we want to make changes, we want to plan. And again, if you just remember that all of these motivation and inspiration is geared for those 10 lesson plans. I have 12 now, teaching lesson plans that the family members will be using to meet their goals to get their blood pressure down and to prevent type 2 diabetes. So this is what they encourage to pull them out, get them going, and keep them going. And here is one that we thought was important. Everybody needs a buddy. One of my nieces would always say that, Auntie, everybody, we need a buddy. We need accountability. We need a buddy. So that's one of the big parts of how we want the program to flow, is to have this open communication that we can get to the bottom of challenges and better ways of doing things, and just staying on the course is having someone to talk with and to keep you going. Okay. And here we have the real food, God's food. Food is medicine, and that we know. I mean, I certainly can attest to that. I just love this scripture. It's the same one that was read earlier, the ones about the plants. And today we're hearing so much about plant-based food that it's amazing as to many of us growing up years ago, where that was pretty much what our meals were made of, which is one of the reasons why we talk about traditional foods that were eaten by our ancestors would be pretty much plant-based, because there was very little meat. We had loads of plants. I mean, lots of great food, though. Now that I think about it, that's great food, but mostly plants. So here we are with, so now that we've kind of gone through how we wanted the curriculum to work, oh, these are the problems, this is what we're going to do, we can do this, it's going to be okay. Let's set some goals. So how are we going to prevent type 2 diabetes? Well, there is a recommendation for the prevention of type 2 diabetes that says that within 6 months that you should lose, if need be, 5 to 7% of your starting weight. And the other goal we put in there was the 3.5 And the family said those number of hours were okay. So 3.5 to 4 hours of physical activity each week. So those are the goals. So that is where the work starts. So here we have, okay, I weigh whatever number of pounds in the next 6 months, I will lose whatever percentage you choose. And then that is your, lose at least so many pounds. And then that's your goal weight for that 6 months. It can change. You don't have to have these huge amounts of weight to lose in that amount of time. It's to start all over again once you reach your goal. So let's keep that in mind, that there are 2 goals so far, and that's the weight loss and the physical activity goal. So let's take a look to see what else do we have. And here we have a weekly weight. We want you to weigh once weekly because you have a goal. So if your goal is 10 pounds, then you want to track that so that you'll know how you're progressing. And so it's good to do that once a week and then to take a look and to keep a record, okay? Now, the action plan is probably the one thing that plays a bigger part. It's a huge part. An action plan is, I now have these 2 goals. I am going to lose this 10 pounds. I am going to walk for 150 minutes or whatever a week. How am I going to do it? So we want to be very specific, very flexible, have some fun, pay close attention to what's working, what's not working, what to do when you have challenges. So here we have, if you say, okay, I have this many pounds, then you're just gonna figure out 3 times a week. You write 3 goals a week, and then every week you go over it, you evaluate it, and you change it to see if in fact there's something that's not working. But you're working toward your walking goals or running goals or whatever the physical activity and getting the weight down. It can be, according to one of the lessons, if we talk about eating more vegetables and fruits, whatever we bring out in the sessions, whatever that session is about, eating less meat, we'll have the backup for that teaching, and you include that in your goal. Okay. This is just some tips on how blood pressure, how to get that down. So we go into processed foods and all of those things. The DASH diet, which is an excellent one, the dietary approach to stop hypertension, which is really good. Okay, and every week we have family activities and the homework assignment. And so these are the kinds of things that we like to see included on a weekly basis. We talk about what worked, what didn't work. Where did you visit with your buddy? Healthy menu planning, food demonstrations. We'd like for each families to do food demonstrations and invite us, of course. Know your numbers, weigh every week, any successes. So this is, a weekly activity. And when we go back, when we meet again, our second session is going to be on the spices. So we're looking at with herbs and spices. We're looking at ways to use fresh herbs, ways to use olive oil, garlic. We're going to talk about sugar. We'll talk about salt, and we'll talk about good fat and bad fat. And that's the focus of our next session. And so that is pretty much what the curriculum is about. Are there any questions about it?
Thank you, Lois. Very informative.
Well, Lois, what's the age group in your family's history?
Oh, are any of my family members here? They might be muted. I would say, like I said, I'm the third I'm the oldest, actually. The other 2 that are older than me, one is my brother, who's a year older, and one is a cousin, and we're about the same age. I would say the youngest one probably
I don't really have to know the
20?
age. I just know like numbers from young to old.
20, maybe 20s to 60s.
That's young.
So
60,
everybody,
70.
so everybody agreed to this, everybody, which is nice. I think it's beautiful.
What do you mean, did they agree? Oh, do they like it? Do
Yeah,
they?
do they like it? Yeah, everybody want to participate and they.
Well, you know what? We started out with a larger number.
Mhm.
We do send out invitations and they, to everybody to come, but there are members who are very much wanting to get those numbers down. They are. Then the question that they would always ask me, and I would always listen to try and answer. They would say to me, how did you live to be your age and not have any pre-existing conditions and on no medication? And I would think about it and think, oh boy, I have got to come up with an answer for that. And so at some point, I mean, I wanted it to be the right answer that they would be able to say, and I would be able to say, but you can do that. And so any rate, I think one of the things that is, I want to be healthy, first of all, and I'm willing to do the work. And so I wanted to share that with them, that was a desire there, that I wanted to be healthy and that I was willing to do work. And that if they wanted to, because they were saying, we want to be like you, Auntie. We want to be like you.
I don't blame you.
And I would say, okay, so if you want to be, this is what you want to do. And then because I've learned, Flora, you're absolutely right. I don't do this, you doing it for me anymore. Because I enjoy the most wonderful, healthy life. And I'm so thankful. And I know that it's not about me, that it really is about my having been obedient and my wanting to be healthy and my doing the work. And I wanted to share that with them in a way in which it would be looked upon as something that they all could do. Okay. So that's how I've kept that little piece out of there. But I don't want to do that. No, we don't do that yet. No, they are.
Very yeah, nice. Thank you, Lois.
Very nice. Very nice. I like that.
I really enjoyed it myself, and I'm amazed as to how we never talked or communicated, but we used the same choice words today.
Yeah.
We reference the same scripture. We talk about ancestors. We talk about legacy. And God, we know God is in the midst.
Right.
And he's really doing a great work. And, even when we don't realize or recognize what he's doing in our life, this was great. It was very thoughtful, very intentional. I mean, something that you could really use. And I mean, we all could use this whole program and agenda. I liked how you break it. I would like to have a copy. I like to, don't know what, how we can adapt it in other ways.
I think more families should share things like this, to work together and helping each other to stay healthy.
Thank you. Yeah. And I feel like that when I share and when my it's just that I am so blessed. It's just, I'm sorry, Kelly, you were saying something.
Oh, no. I want to continue the discussion. I just also want to move to our next piece since we're a little tight on time, but we wanted to, and actually that was a good transition, Patricia. We want to see how we can take this type of, model that Lois has put together and think about how we could use some format of this within our own context. And so I wanted to pull up just an example of the SMART goal planner. So we can think about, what, I know that Bob has been emailing over the past couple of weeks that we wanted to really focus today's session on what we're going to do with all the information that we've gotten moving forward. And, hopefully you all have a specific project idea in mind in terms of, where you want to be going with the information that you've learned and how do you want to help to communicate it in a new method. And so I just wanted to share this, this model here to think about a particular idea that you have and, you know, to see if it's specific, measurable, attainable, or achievable, relevant, and timely. And I'm just going to, just because I can't share two things on the screen at the same time, I also wanted to share a SMART goal that Father David had come up with last fall when we were talking about this, and just to see how we can share something similar to this, but in our own context. So, you know, let me just pull that up for a second. It'll be easier to look at on the screen. Just give me a second here. Okay. So we have the SMART goal. So Father David, do you want to read out your goal here?
By June 2021, engage members of St. Helena Catholic Church, parish, and school in conversations and meals about healthy eating to increase food literacy, acceptability of healthier and plant-based options, and identify policy recommendations for the City of New York and the Archdiocese of New York.
Thanks, Father David. So it's something that I know we've been working on over time. I know that you put some recommendations in for the 10-year food policy plan, and we're working on, you know, some conversations about getting some food and nutrition education into the school curricula at St. Helena's. So there's some different, you know, projects that are related to this goal. And so we just wanted, you know, for you to think about how that relates to your own context. And we have just a couple of minutes if people want to share, you know, your own project ideas, because we know this is the last session of this specific program, this 9-week session that we've been doing, but we want to see how we can help, you know, you move forward in whatever goals that you have for your own community. So the more specific that we can make those, the easier it'll be to keep track of and to see if we're able to reach those goals. So does anybody else want to share what you're thinking of doing within your own community, your church, or neighborhood?
Well, before the pandemic started, at Walker, our person that works in the kitchen, Francine Freeman, she had started doing healthy diets and healthy food when it comes to dinners and our meal planning and stuff like that. She was working on it, but we still need more work. So this mindful eating course thus far, it made me think about maybe I can talk with her and maybe we can incorporate different types of menus that would be healthy for the church by using extra spices and herbs and different things like that. Because a lot of times when you introduce new foods to your congregation, if it's not like what you used to, they're not going to eat it. You know, you're going to waste the food. So maybe we can start doing like some testing, you know, do some testing by giving small little bites and let them try different things. And maybe on one Sunday when we do have our meals together, we could just introduce the different things, a different diet, or a different menu for the congregation to see how it works out.
Well, yeah. Think about, you know, when you would do it, how often you would do it, who would do it. Like the more specific you can get, the more likely it'll be that you can, you know, move forward with those plans.
Yeah, I'm gonna check with Francine. Maybe church is supposed to start opening in September, the second Sunday in September. So maybe we can work on doing something together to get that started with the pastor.
So to piggyback on what Flora is saying, as Kelly and Bob is aware, we do have a community development center of the church, which is the Golden Leaf Community Development Center. And we have begun to engage in healthy habits for the African American community. So, you know, this is right up our alley. And, you know, we're doing our summer camp right now. It's coming up in July. And we have after school program. And so we want to engage the young people and their family in developing, you know, stay within your culture, stay within you know, who you are and begin to develop healthy habits. Just like Lois was sharing with us before, you know, you don't have to go away or get away from who you are, but really within the same context in your culture to begin to develop those plans and, you know, work with the young people just like you're working with your family and have them begin to develop and think about it, not us thinking for them, but have them engage and be inclusive.
Right.
So what Father David shared, that sounds like a mission statement to me.
Yes.
You know, not just a SMART goal, but that's just a mission statement, what he shared. That was impactful as well.
One of the things that I've been passionate about for a long time is healthy eating in our communities where we have a lot of fast food temptation. You know, we are part of Bronx Health Reach, and you know, we talked about how basically every 3 blocks you have a clutter of fast food restaurants, and you know, just on 1 block you have the Wendy's, the Popeyes, the Burger King, the McDonald's, then the Chinese, the Spanish food, and a lot of hidden ingredients and such. So one of the things that I'm passionate about is having people engage in cooking from scratch, doing things like when I grew up, you know, everything was freshly made, but also incorporating the fact that people have different lifestyles. And so I have a baking academy where not only I talk about baking, but I also talk about healthy options, healthy alternatives. And I really think it's important to even link up the elders with the younger folks, because it was the fact that my grandmother taught me how to cook from scratch by cooking for her family that I then turned around and did that for my children. And there's a lot of folks that didn't have that grandmother or that mother or aunt that showed them how. So I'm really passionate about expanding the knowledge, sharing how to cook healthy, how to cook fun, how to enjoy your food, like what Patricia just said, not leaving your culture behind, still doing the things you kind of familiar with or reintroduced to, but do it in a way where you're not overlaid with the sugars and the salts and that sort of thing. So I really like the presentation that Lois gave, because it is so thorough and it's easy and it's very engaging, because you're talking about extending the quality of life. So I'm really passionate about it, and I really appreciate the way she really dug in and broke out the curriculums and such to make it easy. And then the foundation is always God, right? If we go back to the Bible, we know that He talks about in His Word the way we're supposed to eat, how we can appreciate the food without doing too much. And I like to think of food in the way we say don't get drunk on the wine of the world. Well, we've gotten fat off the food and unhealthy food. So it's time to reassess and go back. And I just really appreciate this community, because there's a lot of takeaways and really understanding the broader picture of the food system, that there was some stuff I just wasn't aware of, some I was familiar with, but definitely this has really been a great education, and I still have to dig in and do some of the work. But I've been always passionate about cooking in the kitchen, like get in the kitchen, you know, it's not hard. And introducing recipes that are flavorful, familiar, and extends the quality of life. So thank you for allowing me to share and be part of this.
Thanks, Regina.
You're
Joette?
welcome, Kelly.
Oh, sorry.
We talk about food, but I would like to, which is very good, but I would like to say do more exercise. It's very good. I know it's summer coming along, and my goal in my community to exercise more. You know, after you eat all this food, you need to exercise. Very important. Walking is very, very important. And we should keep that mindful too. That's something that we all can consider. That's one of my goals for the summer.
Joetta, you had her hand up?
Yes. I live in the Community Board 3 area, and I'm chairperson of the Education Committee. And when we had our meeting this month, we talked about the upcoming month. It will not our committees will not start meeting again until September, October. But one of the people on our committee, one of the parents, the parent coordinator of East Bronx Academy, I had said that the topic of the next meeting will be nutrition. And she was very interested and said that she would bring people from her school, from the people who work in the kitchen from her school, as well as students and perhaps other parents, because they were very much in aware and wanted to increase the nutrition possibilities of the school food program. So I hope that we can form a partnership and bring about changes with that school food nutrition program.
That's great, Joette. I'll definitely follow up with you on that. Okay, I think, well, Father David has his hand and then Rebecca.
First of all, I wonder if Joetta might be interested in joining us on that virtual session we're going to have on Friday, since what we're talking about might also affect her.
Mhm.
Secondly, I put in the chat, they're having on Friday a Thai Chinese cooking demonstration where you can do a plant-based Thai Chinese food. So I put information about that. It's a virtual session in the chat. And then thirdly, I guess I wanted to say summer is picnic time. And for a lot of people, you kind of expect picnic food to be a little different than your otherwise food. Wouldn't this be an opportunity to, number one, invite family and friends out on a picnic, and number two, introduce at the picnic plant-based foods? And if they enjoy it, then I might want to say, oh, maybe we can have some of this a little more often. That whether it be the church picnic, whether it be the family picnic, whether it be a graduation picnic, that might be an opportunity to introduce plant-based cooking to people who might not otherwise have been especially open to it. I thought I'd throw those two in.
Father David. Rebecca?
Thank you, Kelly. Hello, everyone. I acknowledge the work you've been doing here, and just this is very moving for me. I've been doing this work for a very long time. I think most of you know that I'm a health supportive plant-based chef. That's what I do for a living. And this is where it all needs to start. So I am putting in the chat a link to something called Heart Smarts. Has anyone heard of it before? So it's a program out of New York Presbyterian Hospital. It's run by a doctor. Her name is Dr. Na Salo Teddy. And what they do is they train people in, it's a Heart Smart nutrition program, but it's very plant-based. Right now, she's working on a completely plant-based curriculum, but it's for churches. So you can become a facilitator, be trained, receive a certificate, and then you can provide the training in your church. I have gotten the training years ago, and then I actually did not do the training, but I was a keynote speaker at a couple of the graduations. So what they do is they take you through, I don't remember, it's 12 months, I can't remember what it is, or 12 weeks, I don't really remember right now. But at the end, people make a meal together and it's community, and then they receive a certificate. So I wanted to just share that with you. If anyone, the training is stellar. I can tell you from being in plant-based health supportive culinary for years, it is stellar. It's all the Esselstyns, and I don't know how much people know about the plant-based nutrition, but it's the top level people is what she uses in her curriculum. I also wanted to say thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. I am still reading the book, Beloved Mindful Eating for the Beloved Community, which, I mean, this is something that's been on my heart for a long time. So to find this community is huge. I have no idea what it's going to lead to, but I do want to offer myself if for classes or even for just coming to churches or faith-based meetings, community center. I live in Harlem, just to talk about it. Even if it's telling my story, I had a precancer condition. My dad died at 63 from high blood pressure. All of those were motivators for me to change my diet. I too am older, no medication, in great health. And I'll say this last little thing. When I had the precancer condition, sorry, I live in Harlem, that's the noise, but precancer condition, when I went plant-based because I was frightened, because the doctor used the word cancer. And I went plant-based basically overnight. And it's not the kind of plant-based we know now. Oh, just take meat out of your diet. Because you can take meat out of your diet all day and nothing changes. It really is a certain way to eat, and it's very much related to food ways. So I thank you so much for that presentation. It was amazing. But I will say this, that when I made that change, not only did I lose 35 pounds, because I wasn't trying to lose weight, I just didn't want cancer. Not only did I lose 35 pounds, but my skin, my hair, everything changed, my hormones, but also my moods and my mindset. And a lot of what we go through as people of color, dealing with a lot of the stressors that come through the generations. And what we are seeing now as we are confronting racial injustice, which brings up a lot of the pain. When you eat a certain way, a lot of the emotional things that we think are normal, they're not. Food can actually address the brain. So I just wanted to leave you with that. The best to all of you, and I'll put my information in the chat. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Rebecca. So we're getting towards the end of our time, and I'm so glad this has been so meaningful for so many of you. And we want to see how we can continue building the momentum for this program. I think most of you know this was the pilot program. This is the first time we're putting this together based on the book that Alex had compiled all those great essays for. And so what we're going to ask is, after today's session, if you could work with us to do a couple of things. One is we're going to send out a post-evaluation survey. If you would be able to fill that out and let us know what you thought of the program, what you liked about it, how it could be improved. We want to use that information in the future. And secondly, our intern Sylvia is interested in interviewing any of you that would be willing to over the next coming days or weeks, just to get more detailed feedback as to what you thought of the program, where you want to take it and going with it next. So Sylvia will be emailing you to set up those times to speak, and we can also do that over the Zoom, just like this. And we want to find other ways to continue to share information. I know we didn't even get to the recipes today, which we had wanted to do. So the recipes that you have, if you have updates on the projects that you all want to do now and taking this work forward, we want to be able to share that on a regular basis, maybe like once a month or something. If everyone would like to get that type of update, we can send out like a newsletter. So yeah, those are just a couple of different things that we hope that you will work with us on doing so we can continue this program. And what else did we want to share? Bob, Alex, Sarah, did anyone want to tie anything else up?
Just one piece. Also, if folks are open to it, we could do a class directory that has people's contact information that we can share. So I'll send an email out and you can let me know, if there's something you don't want shared, but otherwise it'd be great to have people's phone numbers and email addresses and maybe some other information you'd like to share for folks so that you can contact each other and find new ways to collaborate.
Alex there?
Yeah, I always have something to say. Yeah, I don't think this counts as the closing comments. I'll just reiterate what Kelly said because I think it's really, really important. Here lies the inaugural pilot class of Mindful Eating for the Beloved Community, creating thought leadership and health equity ambassadors in different segments and pieces that are multidimensional. So we're really, our effort here was to create a Swiss Army knife in terms of health equity in the community. And so I'll say how proud I am about you in my closing comments. But to Kelly's point, really, really important is the post-evaluation surveys, the interviews. We need to actually capture the sizable investment of time and resources that went into this project program, and really need to well document that this makes sense for us to reinvest in another class. So without your support in actually, quantifying the impact of how things have shifted, how, your voice has been able to be multiplied or amplified because of this class work, please try to make sure that, the post-evaluation surveys, the interviews, all are so important for us to document that this is something that should be reinvested. And then lastly, it does not end here. This is a class, this is a fellowship of sorts, and we are all permanently connected. This is not like, you graduate from high school and you sign yearbooks and then that's it, and you don't see anybody else until you're, have a family way after college. This is something that we're going to continue in this fight in food and racial justice and health equity. And so the directory, I hope everyone agrees to that. Doing a monthly newsletter where every month, every 30 days, we can update externally, the people that didn't know about this program, about the impact of these elements of mindfulness, mindful eating, shaping a beloved community around health equity in the community is so important. It does start here. And, as this being the most powerful beginning, we're looking towards it never ending. All right. And so, so that's really what I think, I will kind of chime in to reiterate what Kelly said. And as that, please keep us updated on the progress of what's happening individually, as a family, as a community, so that we can collect our data, we can collect this information. Our community does not do a good job of collecting data. We let someone else collect the data and then tell us how it should be used. We need to disrupt that pattern right away and actually be able to control the social and health determinants of health in our communities and our families. Sorry, I was over 1 minute, but.
No, you're fine. Yeah, I don't know if Sarah wanted to add anything in as well. Sarah, you there?
Hey, yeah, I'm here. It's been so wonderful listening to everyone today. I'm every summer solstice I come out to the redwoods in California. And this year we're just visiting with some of the indigenous people of this region. And the taking back the foodscapes is so critical, so important to their sense of sovereignty here, and taking back the traditional ways of eating. And it's something, I think this work of to rid ourselves of these diseases is to rid ourselves of the legacies of colonization. And it takes a community to do that. So I think the questions that we're asking is, what support do you need moving forward to continue this work, to be engaged individually in your family, policy level, community level, because this is a change that can and must come from within, and it can only come from within the community. So it's been wonderful to get to know all of you a little bit, and to be with you in prayer during this time.
Thanks.
So I think that's, Bob, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one of the great things that I've seen in kind of the evolution of the program here is this interweaving, looking at our individual ways of eating and cooking and how we do this with our families and connecting it to these broader systems. So, through the systems thinking that Alex was talking about, Sarah putting in the context of the history of sugar and its impact on all of us. Kelly talking about food systems and thinking about it in different ways, but then also, how folks here in the class have really, talked about how it affects their communities in various ways that I hadn't even really thought about in your experiences. So, how making it that kind of both and discussion, so many times we get focused on one or the other. We either look at kind of the individual level and what our behaviors are, or we look at kind of the broader community and policy. But I've just really been inspired by the way you folks have been able to kind of weave those together and look at that in ways, and taking that and moving it forward to change yourselves and your communities for the better. And I think that gives a lot of promise for this way of looking at it and the way Alex has put this together moving forward. So thank you.
Yeah, I think that's so important, is like Bob just reiterated, the connection between the mindful eating and the food systems changes. And that was also part of the assignment. Some of you turned that in, so thank you. It's really been enriching to read what some people have written about your thoughts on this connection between mindful eating and food systems changes. So I'm looking forward to continuing to see those types of reflections and to see how we can inspire more people to get involved with this work. So Alex, did you have any other closing comments?
Closing comments. Let's everyone give ourselves a round of applause for actually graduating the first inaugural graduation class of Mindful Eating for the Beloved Community from an interfaith perspective. Kind of orchestrated and constructed from this book. And, I'm not going to make a plug for you to get the book for others, but, most of you have the book. So, read a chapter. It's a perfect, way of opening up a dialogue with friends and family. Each essay has a lot to discuss from different perspectives. And so, and it's a great way to segue into, what you've learned and sharing that information. At the end of the day, what we want is this to multiply, and for you to even keep in mind, an individual or two that might benefit from this kind of classwork if we get another round of funding. And you can actually, not only pass the encouragement or the knowledge and information, you can actually encourage them to be part of this, where at the end of the day, it's about having as many tools in your toolbox for social change and health equity in the community. And, I'm just really so happy that I had a chance to take this journey with all of you. Sarah, Kelly, Sylvia, I mean, we've bonded as co-facilitators and agreed to disagree. And I've kind of, really jumped into this. And this was also a learning experience for me. I still talk about the reflections of how all the different faith perspectives play a role in setting the table for cooking up social change. That's my new one. And we all play a valuable role in that. And I'm just really also appreciative and honored that we all stuck in there. I mean, this group pretty much was pretty tight and contributed. Everyone contributed to this process, which goes into, it takes a village, right? So this is a village about getting back to our roots of being healthy and whole, being able to be a productive community. And we know a productive community is a viable community and is able to produce, more children and resources for the community, and it's able to be sustainable. And that's what this is all about. So I just thank everyone. I'm so honored that, again, bittersweet that we graduate today. Maybe I'm emotional because my son also graduates. He's 5 from kindergarten, but I feel like it's all part of the same emotional context when you have people step up and step into a situation, and you know that the needle's moving forward, the advancements being forward. What's in the rearview mirror is something to contemplate, but we're thinking about changing and systems change in the future. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Alex. And yeah, so Bob put the survey in the chat, so feel free to click on it now, or if you don't have time, we'll email it to you after. So thank you, everyone. Anything else? Good. All right. David has the graduation.
So Alex, don't go anywhere.
Thank you. What, no music? No graduation music?
Alexa, louder.
But like her hand raised.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss you Wednesdays.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thanks.
You all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll be in touch.